In 1919, the Turkish authorities stated that 800,000 Armenians had died while being deported. Germany, Turkey's ally during the First World War, estimated the number of victims to be around 1.5 million.
There were three methods of destruction. The most common was, as Ambassador Morgenthau says, blunt instruments. He emphasizes that to save shell and powder, the Turks used daggers, axes, spades, all kinds of primitive instruments, because most of the Armenians, particularly the men, before they were liquidated, their hands and their arms were tied. They were totally defenseless. So many of them were shot, but many more were mutilated. They were killed through mutilation, through blunt instruments. So that's one method, as a cold blood instruments. The second method was drowning. There were two types of drowning. One, the largest, was drowning in the Black Sea, in the littoral Trabzon to Samsun, where there was a large concentration of Armenians, and a vast majority of them were taken nightly to the high seas and then drowned in the high seas. Then another method of drowning was in the Euphrates, in the tributaries of the Euphrates River. For instance, Morgenthau in his memoirs mentions that at one point of the Euphrates, there were so many corpses that the river, for about 100 meters, changed course because of the blockage through corpses. So rivers and their tributaries and the Black Sea were parts of for drowning operations. The third method, I think the most ghastly, was burning alive. In the province of Erzurum, province of Harput, but most particularly in two provinces, in Muş, Bit province, Muş. For instance, Muş city had about 15,000 Armenians. Muş Plain had about 100 Armenian villages in Muş Plain. The vast majority of these Armenians, about 90,000, were burned alive in stables and haylofts. This was a special method that they applied, particularly in Muş. Then, of course, many Armenians who succumbed to deportation, they were not killed, but they succumbed to starvation, misery, exposure, and epidemics.